Well, thanks you all for coming to DC. We're setting up sort of a two-city event. The city here is Washington, DC. The other one in October 12, 13 is in Brussels. You kind of get the gist of it. You know, we're in the middle of a changing world. You know, everything gets transformed. We must transform to survive. You know, this sort of pace of acceleration that seems to go faster and faster every day. I mean, rockets kind of compress this experience into a couple of minutes. Who of you has watched a SpaceX launch? Okay, all the rest, next one, watch it. It's the most exciting thing there is. It is live. It's real. If a little bit goes wrong, you get a lot of excitement, right? If nothing goes wrong and everything works, you get a lot of excitement too, because these landing rockets are what was ingrained in my brain, at least in the 60s, to be the future. That's what rockets do. You know, they go up and they also land. They don't fall into the ocean and then they're gone, right? So this landing thing is like donut-shaped space stations, right? That's sort of that, and landing rockets, that's the future. And we're here to build a future that we want to live in. Now, there are several futures. You know, we had to wait for a really long time to get landing rockets. We have no donut-shaped space stations yet, right? We're still working on it. So what's the future for us? Now, the future, of course, is defined by what we do. And this is sort of my little intro before I hand over to Jonathan, because he's a much more exciting speaker than I am, setting the stage for this. Because what we really want you to take away from here is how you can transform yourself and your business to create the future that you want for yourself, for your children, for your business, for the world. You know, it's a big task. And if we don't do it, others will do it, and we may not like it. And this is what I talk about, too, in my little presentation. Who knows who said this? Who was on the tour yesterday? Abe Lincoln, right? This guy. I kind of like his eyes. I look at his eyes. That's a real photo. They had photos at his time. I mean, what's funny, and Jonathan and I were talking about this, what's funny is he was the 13th president. He came some, I don't know, 70 years later, after George Washington. In my mind, it was always Washington, Lincoln, then maybe something, then FDR, Kennedy. So 4 presidents, right? Worth mentioning. Why? Because they have good quotes. You know, if you you know, they're just. I mean, you can live your whole life, you know, on this. You know, this is my Bible, just the quotes from the 4 guys, right? Also, I mean, of course, Kennedy being the real rocket man, right? When in the early 60s he said we're going to put a man on the moon before the decade is out, right? Or his words, I was there, right? Still no donut-shaped space stations, but we got a man on the moon, right? That was pretty cool. So, you know, to predict the future, you just make it, right? And this way you can be sure your prediction is right. That's a good way of doing it. I mean, it's a little showing off, to be honest, right? I mean, this is not impressive if you do it, but creating the future is very impressive. Now, we live in the future already when you see the transformation that's going on in the industry. You know, when you look at this chart, it's the market capitalizations top 5 from 2001, 6, 11, 16. Green is IT company, you know, software, internet services. So we went from oil and banks, and then Microsoft keeps hanging around, right? They've been around for a long time. Replaced by Apple, you know, in 2011. And today, the top most valuable companies in the world are those. You know, the short form for them is GAFAM. You know, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft. Some leave the M away. You know, it's GAFA for some. But I think Microsoft is at least trying to be here, and they are there right at the moment. They all have one thing in common, and this one thing, or these things that they have in common, are actually what's threatening the open internet and what's threatening your business. And this is what, you know, we want to talk about a bit. You know, what do we do against this? You know, how do we take control of our future by creating one that we want to live in? You know, with some you still partner. You know, you have to. It's very hard to avoid it. But really, when you look at their models and how they go about business, they're actually trying to take away what you have already. And that is what we're trying to avoid, because it will lead to very, very closed ecosystems, sort of the opposite of freedom, and that is something I don't like. You know, I was born in East Germany behind a wall, right? I know how that feels. I cannot recommend building walls, but that's over with, right? I heard that's done. Hopefully, at least for the time being, yeah. Walls are no good. Right? Open societies are really what we want. I mean, look at Washington. Washington was designed by a Frenchman, and he did not build walls like the medieval cities, of his time and the previous times. But he built open roads, right? The circles that you have, the roads that go everywhere. You get into the Lincoln Memorial, and you see the openness of the space. That's what open is. This is what we want to be, and this is the world we want to create. Now, it's a little different from what these guys are trying to do, but they're really, really successful. Right? Look at these numbers. That's the top 5. Those numbers, by the way, you see it says 580 billion. It's 771 now. That's 5 months. Right? So it shows you what the market is doing, and this shows you how they're growing. The top 4 telcos combined, and I know one of you is here, just make up the value of Apple. A little more, a few pennies, but wait another month and maybe it's more. Right? The biggest telco is AT&T currently from market capitalization at number 14. So, let this, and see the dynamics, right? This is growing by plus 25% or so from average last year to May of this year. If this trend continues on, Apple now has a $250 billion cash in the bank, right? So Apple could buy one of those, right, with cash. So it is successful. It is successful. But, monopolies are successful. Look at oil, for example. The previous most valuable companies, were monopolies too. And whenever a new technology came around, eventually monopolies developed to get disrupted by free market systems. And this is why we're all here. This is why we're all wealthy, because we're living in a free market. Now, a free market is almost opposed to what these people are doing. And this is why we should listen to this gentleman here. Because if we let this happen, there won't be a free market on the internet, and the internet is what the world is. I mean, in Germany, we have this term called Industrie 4.0, Industry 4.0. And it's like, oh yeah, digital goes into manufacturing as well. Germany is a big manufacturing country. We build cars and stuff and what have you, right? And it's all great. And they're saying, yeah, but this digital thing will disrupt your industry as well. Big time. So if you feel like, nah, I'm in manufacturing or something, I'm not worried, you better are, because those platforms that are being built for the service that we're already using will expand the same model into manufacturing. And so we have to listen to this guy and say, do we want control to be taken away from us in all levels of the economy, in all verticals of the economy, to be given to monopolistic platforms that control that? Do we want to do that? Now, how do they do that? Of course, they're playing a big game of monopoly. They're sort of playing all in the same field, right? They're all trying to sell us, a content, films, music, books, and stuff, any goods. Even they are selling us potatoes now. Right? They're selling us the hardware, the software that we need, all in closed silos and very deeply integrated stacks, which are great. Very convenient, very good products, lots of progress. I mean, you look at what happened to mobile phones in the past 10 years. Right? The iPhone came out 10 years ago. And look at the phones before the iPhone. You go like, really? Did we use that? Right? It really looks old and feels old, and it is a pile of crap. So they've been, improving things a lot, and we really enjoy that. But then on the other hand, they're silos. They have a couple of things in common. They create a platform that they want to control. And the way they monetize the platform is very different. Some build expensive hardware like Apple that we buy for whatever reason, right? We just pay twice as much because it has an Apple on it. But it looks good, right? And it's I like the hardware, so I pay the money happily. The other ones, give us everything for free, and then they monetize our data, everything we do, like Facebook and Google. Some are undecided. Microsoft is trying to do both. They charge us for Windows 10, and they spy on us, and they exploit our data. That sounds kind of smart, right? So they're making money everywhere. We even pay to be spied upon. I mean, that's kind of cool, right? I wish I came up with that. I didn't. But you can only do that when you control the platform. And there's different control points for the platform. They're trying to create more and more. Google creates all these funky stuff, putting stuff in, or Amazon does, right? Now putting a camera into our bedroom. Right? Not only voice recognition, but a camera, so that we can ask the Echo whether we look good or not, or something. I know what the answer is for me every morning, but I don't need to ask. But think of it. I mean, here's Amazon just watching you 24/7 in your bedroom, right? So why do they do that? Because they need the data to derive their business models from it. So, but first and foremost, you have to have a platform that everybody goes to for some reason. If you sell the hardware, by firing up your phone, you're in the platform. You can't get out. They totally control the platform. You're right. If you switch on the internet and you have a Chrome browser, Google controls your life. Right? They see everything you do on the internet. If you are courageous enough to switch your DNS to Google's, right, 8888, Google sees all the internet traffic that you do. And if you don't, they still see it because they do all the advertisement together with Facebook. So every website you visit that has Google advertisement, they see that you're on this website. So they see everything that you do and they monetize that. That's the platform that they've created because the digital advertisement market has grown by 90%, Dirk, are you here? What's the percentage? How much? 20% every year, but 90% of that growth goes to Facebook and Google. Right? So they just take it all. And by doing that, they install little viruses on our machines called advertisements, right, that watch us. Now, the other thing is, once you have a platform, you make it a silo. You make sure that people don't want to leave. You make sure that you can't take the data with you. So if I'm on Amazon, I buy Kindle books. It has digital rights management on it. If I'm fed up with Amazon, I lose my books. Isn't that funny? You buy a new bookshelf, and you have to throw away all your books. That's called a silo. It's also very hard to migrate stuff away when it's not an open standard. It's like WhatsApp or so. All your WhatsApp chat history or your Snapchat or your Facebook Messenger or your whole Facebook Live that you've posted there, which becomes a very expensive memory for you because you're not really having photo books anymore. You're not really writing stuff down anywhere else but on Facebook because you want to share it with people. So now you're on Facebook for 10 years. 10 years of your life is there. If you say, I'm fed up with Facebook, okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye, you're still here. I'm gone. 3 days later, you're back. We ask people, would you leave one of the social services? You would find out that, they're exploiting your data, selling it to others. Oh, yes, absolutely, we would. Right? 50% said that. But then everybody is coming back. Because you can't leave. Because you can't take your data with you. Because they make it very hard and inconvenient to do so. So you're not really free to choose anymore. You have to live with whatever they're impressing on you. That's called a lock-in, because once you're being snuck into the platform, you can't leave, you're locked in, you're in a big, comfortable prison. Now, how do they get you to use the platform? They have great tools that we really love using. Facebook is a great tool that we love using. It has made publishing and sharing so easy. iPhone is a great tool that we love. Google Search, awesome. Google Maps, even better. We're all addicts to these services. But they're really Trojan horses. Because what they really want to do is get us into the silos and lock us in and never let us out again. They want control over what we do and how we move forward in what we're doing. They want control over your business, too. And you're providing a network, most of you do, right, that they use, that they need to get their services out to the people. But they want to control the end-user experience. They want to own the consumer. They want to give you everything so that you never have to leave. This is why they're all broadening the portfolio so much. Microsoft is now building hardware, Apple is in cloud services, so everybody does what the others are doing as well. They're just monetizing it differently. But really, you get everything from everyone. Right? It's kind of funny whenever some new type of hardware comes out, like the Amazon Echo came out, Google comes out with a voice thing, and Apple will be next coming out with a voice thing that you put up in your home. Right? And you've seen that with watches and everything. It always goes like one does it first and then the rest follows in a very, very short time frame for the reasons that are obvious when you go through this list here. They all sell direct to consumers. They use you sometimes as a channel because if you're a mobile carrier, of course, you're selling phones, right? But it's either a Google phone or an Apple phone, right? So it's the Trojan horses that you help them get into the field. Or you're reselling a service of them, or you're bundling a service, or you're making money by directing your customers to Google Search or something like that. So they have many ways to use the channel, but they're not really partnering with you. All they want is your customers to deal with them directly, because that's at the heart of the business model. It's a closed ecosystem. Remember, the whole internet is built on open APIs and open software and open protocols. This is why everybody can plug in. It's federated. If I plug in an email server here, I can talk to all other email servers all over the world. Why? Because it's an open protocol, owned by nobody. I can get a great open source email server for people, right? We're not talking about products here. I've been instructed. And so forth. So you can use a full open source stack to just connect and provide services. That's the open internet. This is creating the closed internet. Because the owners of the silos decide, what are you doing? It's closed APIs. They switch them off. I mean, there has been more open APIs on Gmail, for example, for calendaring. We just switch them off. IMAP access to Gmail is very slow because they don't want you to use it. They want you to use the Google APIs and the Google UIs, the web UIs or the apps. Otherwise, they can't do their little trick here. So overall, this is the recipe for building a monopoly. Another way of saying it, which is a little nicer, is this picture, the Eagles song, Hotel California. There's a song list, right? Got this music in your ear, right? You can always check out, but you can never leave, right? This is what they're doing masterfully. I mean, we really have to say, it's comfortable. The Hotel California is comfortable. It's warm, you get your drinks, you get your drugs, right? But you cannot leave. The song is about drugs. It's not about these guys, but it's kind of translates. Well, you're not so foreign to that market. Many of you are little monopolies. That's from 2014, so if you critically look at the picture, you say, yeah, but, Charter merged with Time Warner, and this is a little different. Yeah, But when it comes to internet access, really, you're little monopolies here and there, too. And you know why you are, right? And you know why, this roll-up happens. It all kind of makes sense. But then you don't really use sort of that power that you have. And maybe you can't, but maybe you can in the future because you're heavily regulated and the OTTs are not. Here in the US, we become less regulated now, which may sound like a good thing, but I really think it's a bad thing if we lose net neutrality because we don't need gatekeepers on the internet. And even you nice folks here, you shouldn't be gatekeepers for it, but maybe at least it's a little fairer now that you get less regulated as opposed to the OTTs, the GAFAMs, which could do what they want. I mean, my little spiel would be to say, hey, regulate those guys a bit more about, data ownership, privacy, and what they can do, and blah, 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 like you do with the telcos, instead of getting the level down for everyone. I don't think that's going to be good for the internet. So you will be happy for a couple of days, but then suffer with all the rest of it. But what this means is you have a lot of power to control your future because you're controlling the most important piece of the internet already. I mean, think of this. Those eyes, right? What can you do? Let's go through the list. What the OTTs do and what you can do. They want to create a platform to onboard people to. You have a network. You're there already. All your customers are already on your platform called the network. All internet traffic of your customers goes through your network, unless they log into the Starbucks Wi-Fi or something. But you may want to do stuff to protect them from the threats of that too, and get them back on your network, even if they are on a Wi-Fi somewhere else. That's a big deal. So far, you're sort of giving it away to the GAFAMs for their little spiel, but you're really controlling what's going on the internet. Keep the net neutral. Don't filter Google. I mean, maybe you can now. I don't know. I mean, is that what the new law is? Maybe you should then, right? No, you will have a lot of unhappy customers if you do. Keep the internet free and neutral, but you have the network, and you can derive a lot of services from the network that you cannot create otherwise. And that's your huge advantage. You don't have to create the platform. It's already there. You've worked in the past, some of you, 100 years or so on this, right? Don't try to recreate a silo. The others are so much better at it. There's no way you can catch up with them. Forget it. Don't try to copy them and do the same crap. We don't need more crap. But instead, the internet is so successful not only because it's open, but also because it's federated. What does federated mean? Anybody can fire up a service, on an open protocol and take part in the overall network. Still, the network underneath is yours. But if you create syndicated services, it means that you're creating an open ecosystem, and you will have the same growth effects that the internet itself has created for the internet. The internet has created these silos, right? We can do better. We can do the next wave and do what is at the heart of the principle of the internet and repeat it all over again. Mail is so great because it's federated. I don't have to know what email service you're using. If I want to chat with you, I have to ask you whether you're on Snapchat, WhatsApp, Messenger, and all these things. You're probably on all of them because some of your friends are on all of them. So you have like 10 messengers on your phone. And when you say, how did I talk to Sarah last night, over the phone? Let me look. No, what's it? No, no. I don't know. With mail, I have my mail history of the past 30 years on me. Right? It's just there. And I don't care what email service you're using. Yeah, I do care what email service you're using, but for different reasons. But I don't need to know. I don't need to know as a user of the system. That's what federated means. And there's lots of great federated services that we can build to compete with the silos. And eventually these things will win. I mean, even simple things like basic text messaging, SMS, was federated or is federated. Now, how can we move from SMS to WhatsApp? Right? They created a better experience, a Trojan horse, and a silo, and so now they got them. We have to take people out again, and create services that do what people like doing, but in a federated way. Don't lock people in, but lock the bad guys out, the bad guys. And that's not GAFAM. I'm not calling them the bad guys, but the real evil stuff that's out there. Because an open internet has a lot of threats and perils that we need to deal with. And as you're owning the network, you're in the best position to protect people from that. Just make sure you filter the bad stuff. Make sure that the people can feel safe in your network. Because that's an expectation that you can actually fulfill because you own the network. You see everything that goes through the network. So there's a huge opportunity for you here to create something that makes your customers feel more comfortable and safe on the internet by locking out the bad guys. And I won't say more. We want to create thought in your brain today, right? And Miriam will do a lot, and Jonathan, to sort of roll this forward. And maybe at the end of today or tomorrow, we can talk more concrete ideas, but there's a lot of stuff that you can do that you haven't even started with. Don't try the Trojan horse model. Don't sneak in through the back door. Be open and transparent, because that relates to a big item on this list, which is trust. You've been around for a long time. You have long-standing relationships with your customers. As you connect them to the world, they have to have a lot of trust in you. Use that, build it out, provide them with a safe and sanitized internet experience that keeps them safe and whole, and don't exploit them in the mean way. Be the nice guys. Being transparent, saying, here's what we do, and then doing what you said you do. Most of the other guys don't. They're lying to the world all the time. They're not saying what they really do. Because if they would, people would run away in hordes. They would be scared to death. So they're not. They can't. You can. You're not doing anything evil. Just do that. Be fully transparent. This is why I think open source is in the core of this. Because you can be transparent about the software that you're running. You can say, hey, if you don't like me running it for you, you can download it from there, get your Raspberry Pi and run it yourself. Right? That's transparency, and this is how you create trust, because you're not hiding away anything. Make great services. People use GAFAMs because they create great stuff. From a user experience perspective, from a design perspective, we have to compete at the same level. Because consumers don't think, they just use and feel. And you want to make them feel good. But with services that they can trust. The over the top, what's sort of the other side of over the top is local and safe. You are pretty local and close to your customers. You know them, right? You're in the region they are. They can walk into some point of sale of yours. They can call support. They can talk to people. And at least they get a bill every month from you, right, where you communicate to them. That is much, much more personal than anything the OTTs do. They have a very hard time. Of course, they scale globally, and they can't, have you touch a lot of people, actual human beings in the process, right? Because otherwise, they wouldn't scale at the speed. You have that in place. Use it. Use it. People love it. And instead of being closed, be open. Stay open. You've probably heard that as our little slogan, right? To be the counter force to the monopolies that are being created. Retaining the free market, keeping the market open, because that's what made us all rich. Monopolies are never good for the people outside the monopoly who don't benefit from the monopolies. And very few people benefit from the monopolies. So we have to make sure to keep this an open, free economy, to keep it an open and free world. And you will play, if you do this, an integral part into making sure that this happens. So we are on a much different mission than you may think. Yeah, we have to deal with our business. But we're on a mission like this gentleman here. We're more or less on the same mission. He thought, how can I make America a free country where people want to come in and create wealth for everyone in this country. This is why those 4 presidents that I've mentioned, from Washington to Kennedy, are so important, because they have, thought this through for us in a very visionary way. I mean, just imagine their times. Washington, that was 89 or something, that he became president. I mean, that was the Dark Ages in many countries that we're all from, right? I mean, not Dark Ages, but it was not a democracy. I mean, we had kings that fought wars. Maybe the French, as always, they were already killing their kings, right? Which, well, probably, whoopsie, yeah. But then came Napoleon, right? Well, that's a different story. Yeah, he was a very peaceful man after his wars, right? This guy, Abe, was a visionary. I mean, it's really worth reading a lot of his quotes, and FDR's, and Kennedy's, and Washington's, because that's what has created this wealth. And in a way, we're at a turning point. In many ways, I'm not talking politics, as you notice, right? I haven't mentioned the 45th president yet. It's very hard for me not to. But just pick out the good examples and do accordingly, and do accordingly in your market, because if you're not happy with the way things go, just take control of your own destiny and create the future that you want. You're in very powerful positions. We here make a big piece of what the future for our children will be like, because it will be, digital, and we're creating this digital ecosystem. We have to create it in a way that we really like, and that we, can be proud of when we talk to our children. When I'm sitting in my rocking chair, not smoking my cigar. That's over then. What am I going to do? Drinking. Watch rocket videos, yeah, and see my donut-shaped space station that Elon built for me, right? So, I want to say to you all, you're a big part of that, and let's try to use the time here to become creative and go home with our head full of ideas on how we make this future happen. So thanks for listening, and well, may the 4th be with you, right?